It is another spectacular weather day here in South Florida on this Thursday afternoon, May the 7th. Blue sky for as far as the eye can see. Perfect weather for thoroughbred racing, an 11 race program with the mighty Pegasus in the background there. We have a number of turf races on the card, and we welcome you, everybody. A few stories, or put it this way, I'm a few stories above the finish line. Acacia's on ground level, and it's just great to have you with us as we kick off Acacia, a brand new 4-day racing week of the spring meet.
We certainly do, and what a week it looks to be. Just some very solid races. We have a couple of two-year-old races, one today, one tomorrow, a stake on Saturday, so a lot of fun stuff to bring you this week.
Absolutely, and some big news, and it absolutely ties into our featured stake here on Saturday, the Sunshine Forever, with, we can now say, because it's official, Hall of Fame trainer Mark Casse being inducted into the 2020 Hall of Fame class in Racing's Hall of Fame, of course, in Saratoga Springs. Obviously, a career still very much ongoing, but over 2,800 victories and purse earnings of nearly $175 million.
Absolutely, and of course those classics. I mean, what a 2019, winning two classics with two different horses. War of Will, you'll see him here in the Preakness, up the inside with that white face, and then Sir Winston taking the Belmont. War of Will, in fact, making his 2020 debut on the turf, actually, where he started his career this Saturday here at Gulfstream in the Sunshine Forever.
Had 5 Breeders' Cup victories, including a near miss. Last year wasn't a win per se, but when you think about the performance Got Stormy put in, and love that shot at Tyler Gaffleone on the gallop out, and there is very classy individual, has been a great ambassador to the game, and Mark Casse, born in to thoroughbred racing. In fact, there's that saying that his dad essentially created Ocala up north of us in the northeastern part of Florida, and I just think of Mark passing along just a love of the game, a passion for the game to his son Norm. It is an absolute accolade worthy of him being enshrined in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, sure, certainly is. And I know always a guy that, as far as being members of the media, always somebody that'll give you an interview and give you a great one. I spoke to Mark just the other day about War of Will and Got Stormy as well, Sir Winston, all of them looking for a place to make their comeback here in 2020. And just pretty, I would imagine, pretty exciting time for the barn having such top-notch horses like that.
Absolutely, and I'm sure a 2-year-old crop, that's second to none. I mean, he gets well-bred, very pricey horses for the likes of John Oxley and Gary Barber, to name a few. And the question becomes, as we switch gears and focus in on this fast and firm 11-race Thursday program, is Mark Casse and his Victory Town potentially a single in the opening leg of the Jackpot Rainbow Six? How do you like that guarantee at $1.75 million?
Not too bad at all. It starts in race 6 this afternoon. We do have 11 races on the card. Unfortunately, the 5th race today, and a couple got pretty impacted by scratches, so maybe those are races you can kind of pare down a little bit early on, save for building the bankroll there in the Rainbow Six. Nice chunk of changes. It's continued to build at a pretty rapid pace.
It would not be a day here at Gulfstream without what seems like a daily rite of passage, a 12-horse opener. My question to you, though, as we start the card, the new week, and the early pick 5, did you narrow, for pick 5 purposes, did you narrow this first race down to the Christophe Comont drop down and the likely favorite is a big favorite right now in the 6, My First Ex-Wife?
I used 3, in fact. I used the 2 favorites, both dropping down. They're logical in here for sure. My First Ex-Wife looks like she's going to be pretty tough in this spot, but I'm intrigued by Party Dress trying the turf, and she's a big price right now, but she might take a little bit of attention lately. She's a little bit of a price play I'm spreading in our 2-year-old race today with the fillies in center stage this afternoon. I'm too deep in the third race, using a couple of the logical ones, I'd say. 4th race is actually so pretty interesting race. I prefer Veer for Brian Lynch in there, but using 3. And then my single, actually a horse before scratches, I liked all along, Bad Beat Brian, though with all of the scratches and now just a 3-horse field, there's no way I'm getting 8-1, but I still like him, and I'm just going to hang my hat on him.
Well, he's got the speed. It sounds silly. He's got to outrun 2 horses, but it looks like he's gonna be able to control that race over Bourbon Currency as he faces, again, just a couple of horses in that 5th race cash out. As we start, on the contrary here, again, you've got a 12-horse cast in the turf opener, a 5-furlong 3-year-old filly, 12-5 to 10-5 maiden claimer, and an interesting matchup here, maybe not so much in terms of getting a price, because they're going to be the top two wagering choices by just a chasm per se. But it's an interesting, I'd say, argument and matchup between more of a second-time starting turf horse and drop down in the 2, No No Nina, and the filly you and I both picked in the 6, My First Ex-Wife, who obviously has that solid, consistent turf form going 5 furlongs.
Yeah, she's been knocking on the door in her last couple for 25,000 and dropping in for the 12.5. It just kind of, it's not as precipitous a drop as No No Nina, and certainly No No Nina just kind of looks okay. Well, she's taking such a big drop in class. Maybe she's going to just wake up in here, and you know how I feel, Jason, about those big drop downs, and whereas 25 to the 12.5 just looks a little bit more logical for a horse that's been close in her last couple.
And you wonder, Connection saying just can't be too picky, races here. So if we win and we get claims, so be it. We'll see how Arad and Tyler do. That's another little subset as far as the big 2 in the first, with Tyler riding for Christoph on the deuce and Arad piloting Jorge Abreu's horse, the 6, My First Ex-Wife. Let's move on to the second here. We hit the main track, and as you had noted in the opening of the show, Acacia, I mean, this really begins the first of 3 consecutive cards where we have one solid-looking 2-year-old maiden special weight. The fillies, unlike Friday and Saturday, get their chance in the spotlight here, and the usual suspects, obviously, are throughout this race. When you look at the firster for Wesley Ward and the 4 Gem Thief, you've got the Arundel Homebred, the 5 Lyrical, and let's not forget trainer Mike Yates, who's in the mix here with the 7 Briella.
He is, and I took a shot with this filly, just kind of looking at precocity, and as far as just being able to win now. Mike Yates has been on a really good roll lately. Barnes just seems like everything's been well meant. The Dam's been a really good producer, I would say. The star of the family has been stakes winner Cajun Firecracker, who was really precocious here last summer. So there's that 2-year-old win early. There's plenty of dirt sprint. Just thinking that this is going to be the right spot for this one. Versus Gem Thief, who I respect, but just largely on pedigree, really struck me as turf.
We'll see. This horse has breezed already on the turf. Wesley, between Palm Meadows and GPW, now picks up a Rod Ortiz Jr. for a barn. I mean, let's be frank about this, has not lit the world on fire with the 4 2-year-olds they've sent out so far. In fact, they've only won one of those races thus far. I picked the 4 Gem Thief, hoping that history would be on my side here in an early season maiden race. We've also got Arundel, again, very much a part of the conversation with the number 5 Lyrical, and this is a home game for her. She's based here at Gulfstream Park with trainer Juan Alvarado, who's been in Fuego, and I'm curious to hear and just show this breeze and hear what your opinion is. I walked away from it thinking it was solid and very much in the company of a 2-year-old colt who's entered here tomorrow by the name of Bailey.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that that's a pretty interesting and intriguing thing as well. Bailey outside, Lyrical inside, and though she was actually a little bit green, a little bit high-headed, all in all, I thought that once she kind of got into her rhythm in the stretch there, and it's right a little bit past here where she kind of puts her head down a little bit more and relaxes and is able to kind of not just hang tight with her mate, but almost kind of pull away a little bit. I thought it was a strong work from her. 2 works back, she worked with Darla and Chucky, both of whom we've seen run already for Arundel and Juan Alvarado, both of them finishing 4th, and both of them way far back behind Lyrical.
And as far back goes, you do have 2 horses in the 6, Sister Aurora, and the 8 Awesome Views, who are coming out of the Queen Watifa race. Great name on her. That race already 2.5 weeks ago, and Ralph Nix and Javier Negrete run both those horses back. We'll see if the race day experience kicks in this afternoon and what figure to be pretty good prices. On to the main. In fact, we stay on the dirt. We'll move on to Thursday's 3rd here. Cast of 7, and these are 3-and-up fillies and mares in this 2 lifetime 6250 claimer. Basically, this race, to me anyway, Acacia, boils down to the 2 through 5. A 4-horse rematch here. The 2 through 5 finishers of the popular last out race for many in this race. In fact, more than half the field exits that Probably Grace race. And with the number 7 Cherorama coming back with a bunch of changes, second off a 4-month layoff, blinkers are on and getting Miguel Vasquez, I'll take a shot for a barn that we both like in Terry Pompey.
Yeah, and I think it's certainly encouraging to see this filly come back now. relatively soon after that April 14th race, there was those big gaps from July to December, December to April. Not, tremendous gaps, but certainly some gaps in being able to stay on the racetrack. So I think that that's encouraging, and she should have a probability to move forward. I wanted a fresh face out of that race, and I took the 5 Stormy Boss, who's turning back in distance to the 6 furlongs, ran very well at this distance, 2 starts back when just beating a neck.
We move on to the 4th. We're back on the turf, and we do come up on a race that had 3 defections in the body. 12 had entered. We'll go at 9 now, looking at this group of 3-and-up filly and mare, $16,000 to $14,000 maiden claimers. And although a lower level maiden claimer for all intents and purposes, I think this is a pretty good race here. There's a lot of layers going on, and some horses returning to action, or in this case, as far as my top pick and your second choice, debuting here locally with a bunch of changes in tow at Gulfstream Park. We'll talk about a few, but let's begin with, I think, the real key to the race, though, or at least the starting point is the number 12 Caribbean Kitten, who's a new face, a drop down here. I found this stat with trainer Mike Maker I thought worked well for this daughter of Kitten's Joy, who'd run a couple of times at Fairgrounds from 8 and 30 and ran fine in both those races out in the middle of the country. And this stat to me, these domestic shippers right off the van running here at Gulfstream for Mike Maker at 15 for 46, probably in this sample a combination of horses that were dropping down or just improved here or found easier spots at Gulfstream. I think that bodes well for a filly who, not that she needed a ton of help, but hey, she's in 3 stalls with those 3 scratches.
Oh, absolutely. And as we've been saying, going a mile and a 16th, not impossible to win from out there at all. If you and this is not necessarily a need the lead type of horse or anything as well. I think she's a very big player. I just gave this slight preference to the number 10 Veer, who I had actually liked a bit last time, liked her last race a bit, and I'm thinking the slight drop to the 16 today. Amisale Jaramillo might fit her well. Just thinking this is going to be a good spot for her to maybe kind of take another step forward, though I do respect Caribbean Kitten.
This might be a better race than the Bulldad field. A few of these are coming out of. In fact, make that one because Honolulu Bay on the rail scratch. But I wanted to pull the last out race of the number 8 Masande. I forgot just how strong a favorite this daughter of Fedbiz was, and we've got her highlighted as the number 1. She's very easy to spot, obviously with the red saddle towel and the pink silks. But I wanted to show, despite being 8 to 5, and although she didn't crack the try, just how tough of a time she had being forced to make this unencumbered, uncovered up 4 to 5 wide sweep around that second turn. And I ultimately walked away from watching this race a lot more so than just looking at the effort as far as the running line. I think she ran better in reality than maybe that race suggests on paper, and she's going to be, as you might expect today, Kate, she's going to be a lot higher than that 8 to 5 price she was first out.
And looking back, I mean, it's still pretty surprising she was such a short price in debuting for 16,000. Not normally something you'd see from the barn either. I thought she ran fine. It certainly fits at this level. I thought it was an okay performance. I preferred the other 2 that we had mentioned so far, and maybe I should have given her a little bit more attention this afternoon, because it really is intriguing when you think about it, how much money she took, and certainly has a license to take a step forward second time out.
And I see I know we got to get moving. You've got Joel third here, and he is riding the 4 Formula, who's kind of a wise guy horse second out, isn't she?
Well, she just never really had a chance to run in her debut, so I'm hoping, it is a pretty significant drop, but she was a huge price in her debut as well, and good to see Joel Rosario back here in South Florida after riding and doing very well at Oaklawn.
Definitely. Here's the 5th, cast of 3 after scratches. This begins a series of 3 consecutive races where, unfortunately, early or late scratches, depending upon the time of day you're talking about, really change things around. And as you had noted at the top in singling the 7, Bad Beat Brian, just looking for this gelding to potentially wire the field.
Yeah, I'm hoping that that's the case, and especially when you have such a short field like this, it's amazing because a lot of stuff really can go wrong. It's a little bit more difficult to kind of gauge race tactics when you only have 3 horses in there as well. So I think that the speed's going to help. Like I said, I had actually liked them all along. Moving to Todd Pletcher today and just getting back on the grass, have to respect Bourbon Currency. Good race last time and maybe kind of finding his groove, but it is going to be trying to come from behind, and that's difficult to do in just a small field.
Definitely. He'll face 2. We go with 3, and we'll take a little time out with the Rainbow 6 or perhaps Rainbow 5 coming up after this.
stretch.
Pristine conditions here at Gulfstream Park. Sun is shining. We're back at it. Hope you're tied on, everybody, and hope you're doing okay as we start week number 6 of the spring meet. We've got JB upstairs, AC downstairs from our paddock set studio, and we've got the Gulfstream Park guru who is holding down the fort off-site. We'll hear from Ronnie throughout the afternoon, but he is stepping in the ring, isn't he, tomorrow afternoon?
And you know what, Jason? I'm just glad it's not me, and I'm sure you feel the same way.
Oh, yeah.
Ron's Beat the Expert this week. It's, we kind of joke about it, but it is always a lot of fun, and it's free to play, so hopefully you're playing Gulfstream anyway. You can just go on in and put your picks in, get the bragging rights, and potentially a chance to win one of the Beat the Expert polos.
Now, is this a rainbow pick 5 of sorts with a likely heavy? I'm thinking 3 to 5, 1 to 2 to start this thing with the presence of the 5 Victory Town, who didn't need a ton of help, but is just way more imposing without the 1 Celtic Brotherhood in the opening leg.
And I had originally liked Celtic Brotherhood, and I certainly respect Victory Town. I'm not going to single him. I am going to go too deep. I'm including the Ralph Nix Firster and in Granger County. It's just a 38-40 ticket, so I figured might as well just give myself a little bit more coverage in the first leg. A Misael Jaramillo up, and again, I had planned to kind of go too deep in there anyway. The race I wanted to spread in this afternoon, though, Jason, is the 9th race today. I think that actually is still a very interesting little race. You got a couple of rematches in there. Wondering if we're going to get a little bit more from Mike's Girl on the outside for Danny Gargan.
Sure.
I wanted to include that one. Too deep in the 10th race today. Flora Fantasy is the only Jose D'Angelo one in there left. I'm going to also include Royal Megan. And then we wrap things up with a pretty interesting high-level maiden claiming race on the turf. I'm 3 deep in there for the nightcap.
And Mike Maker, in fact, sending out a couple of horses in the nightcap. There's a whole bunch of unknowns. That looks like that could be a good fool-around race, depending upon your stance with the one of the 2 Mike Maker horses that I think might run quite well this afternoon and be pretty tough coming in from Fairgrounds. Looking at this race, though, again, we open up the show with a more than worthy congratulations to newly minted Hall of Fame trainer Mark Casse, and he is going to be a massive favorite with his number 5 horse Victory Town with no Celtic Brotherhood in the mix. And boy, I mean, unless somebody really steps up out of the woodwork, it looks like Victory Town just way the horse to beat after that scratch.
And that was kind of why I included a first-time starter underneath, but it is kind of hard. There's not a ton of form to really sink your teeth into this race. I thought it was a good race against Open Maiden Special Weight 2 starts back, and then last time out going back into restricted state bred company, ran a good second behind Whiskey Sunrise. So I think that this one looks like he's going to be in the right spot for sure. Maybe Granger County. There's not a ton on the bottom side, an immediate family as far as pedigree does go, but a steady work tap here at Gulfstream for Ralph Nix and a Jackson Better homebred.
Let's move on to the 7th, and again, early scratches fill up a part of the conversation as we start Thursday's late pick 5, and it's just a race losing Fiber Optic, who was going to be, I think, a strong second choice, along with the number 5 Airball. It looked like they may just vie for favoritism. I just think Airball, as far as sprinting 5/8 on the turf, I think she is the class of the field, and she's got good, recent, sharp, consistent form, and I like her as the favorite. The 8th race really gave me fits, and it probably is because I don't trust the number 5 4Ks, and we'll elaborate a little more on that race as a whole. She was a late scratch here the other day. I mean, she's got backclass that will eviscerate that field. I just don't trust her. I wanted coverage there, 5, 6, 7, and 8. I went 3 deep in the 9th. I'm with you. That's a pretty good race with a couple of different rematches and some horses coming in from different spots, like the 2 Lido Key, who's now Ken McPeak off Gary Contessa. Flora Fantasy going to be a clear favorite. She's the 5 in race number 10 this afternoon. I didn't want to because she's such a plotter. I wanted to have somebody else that I thought would just maybe not be as talented as her to this point, but someone that's just a little nimbler out of the gate, and I think I found that, hopefully anyway, in the 3 Royal Megan, and much like Acacia, you're a Rainbow 6 ticket. Different horses, mind you, didn't use the same 3, but I'm trying to close this thing out using every bit of the 5, 6, and 9 in the turf nightcap. Turf is where it's at to start this late pick 5, and although we we lost Fiber Optic, we can show you a very strong recent last out effort out of the 5, Airball, who I thought she ran really, really well in this race and far better than Fiber Optic, who had just got this cakewalk trip where she cleared off into the far turn, and I had pulled it at this point, just wanting to show how easy of a time Fiber Optic had in clearing. An Airball who had a chase inside and will eventually angle outside of her in the 2-path. I just think she ran a really solid race, losing to a very well-bet and strong closing, Blue Magic.
And it's been tricky because she's kind of had a little bit of seconditis recently, but she has been running against some nice horses. Blue Magic, I thought, was impressive that day. Catharsis, a repeat winner. Miss Aramet's been in excellent form. So she has been running some very good races. I was a little bit hesitant with her at first coming into this because, for what it's worth, I do think that Royally Cool is definitely one to look at as well, as far as first off the claim for Steve Caceres. That said, I think even with Fiber Optic out, there should be enough speed on the front end to give Airball just a really kind of perfect stalking trip in this race. It really is hard to overlook her.
You've got to love, though, and although I think, again, she's my single in the late 5, I think she's a legit as could be favorite, you got to give a little pre-race love to Royally Cool. She's the 4, of course, as you mentioned, off the claim for Steve Caceres. Pretty amazing how she's been able to switch hit back and forth, but I still wonder if dirt is just quite simply her preferred surface.
Well, it's tricky, too, because she hasn't run that much on the turf, and her last turf race at Tampa was against tougher and with different connections. So we'll see what we get from her this afternoon, but she has speed, and she looks like the type of filly that would kind of fit the Caceres barn to a T. So interested to see what we get from her.
Definitely. Here's the 8th. We're back on the dirt. We've got older fillies and mares in the 6250 claiming race, which is very much led off, I think, simply and succinctly by the Wesley Ward layoff drop down. I mean, the whole shebang here with the number 5 4Ks. How do you proceed, though, with a mare who was a late scratch back in the middle of April, I think April 17th or 19th. I can't remember the date. It was a Sunday afternoon, and she was around 6 to 5, and she just didn't make the gate that day. I just don't know what to do with her, and I see you had the same dilemma. We both got her 4th.
Yeah, I kind of threw her on the end there, but I'm not blown away by her. It's another drop in class. It was kind of a curious situation in general. I will say she showed a lot more speed 2 starts back. I know that was going 2 turns. Now she's switching to the dirt. She comes out of a good race for what it's worth. Blinkers off. It's just kind of like for sale sign is out. Let's just see if we can get a good run from her. And I would imagine maybe we'll see some more speed, but I did prefer a few others. I think there could be enough pace in here. Worth Avenue, second off the claim for Victor Barboza. She's taken money in her last couple, but I thought last time, and I had liked her last time, but I thought last time she kind of showed a little bit more of what we had once seen from her. So I'm hoping she continues on that trajectory.
I'm with you. I thought that last race was a good sign, all things considered. And when I say that, you are dealing with a mare here who has not won a race since May 13th of 2018. Yep. So basically, smack dab between Justify's Kentucky Derby and Preakness wins, just to kind of put a context time frame in there. So it has been a long time without wins, but that last race, I'm with you. Hopefully a good sign for the 8 Worth Avenue. We'll see how she does, 1 of 2 in the race for trainer Victor Barboza Jr. We're on the turf for race number 9, again 11 this afternoon, so the final pick 3 begins with this older filly mare, $40,000 starter allowance, and I think parity is a good word to use off the bat. It just seems like this is an evenly matched field altogether, inside to out. I gave the slight edge to the 3 Bean Counter in her rematch with Big Tina, but I respect the 2 Lido Key, who seemed to get her act together earlier in the year up north at Tampa Bay Downs and is now with trainer Ken McPeak. And you're taking a shot, I see, with the 4 Champagne Horizon. Was it the rain softened turf last time for her?
No, I had a note to bet her back, actually, and it even actually shows in the short comment. She got loose in the post parade, and she was actually loose for quite a while. I have to imagine she expended a lot of energy last time out before the race even began. She ran a really good race, I thought, 2 starts back, and she had taken money last time, and I know that she was beaten by some others, but given the fact that on top of expending a lot of energy before she even got in the starting gate, she did have to run on a turf with some moisture in it. So I really like her in here today, though she's going to have her running shoes on. This is actually a pretty salty and interesting field.
It's a very good field. The 7 Sassy Justice has been been really a gem of consistency on the turf. She's now with Mike Maker coming out of the Augusta Moon race. And you had mentioned, I don't have her in my top 4, but the 10, as I was getting prepped for the show a while back this morning, I said, man, Mike's girl does have a little bit of a look to her, just with Gargan sending her out and the fact that she's going to be way higher than the 6-5 she was in a recent start.
Yeah, I think she took so much money just coming down from New York and having that DQ 2 starts back. And she just seemed like she lacked a little bit of punch last time out. But second time here in South Florida, she's now been freshened up since mid-February. Just struck me as the type that might be able to run a little bit better in here today.
Good race on the turf in the 9th, as we don't miss a beat, really. Different kind of race, but there's quite a bit of form to go on, and reliable form in our dirt finale on this 11-race Thursday as we move into this Florida-bred 3-and-up Filly Mare allowance optional claimer. And I feel pretty comfortable saying the most talented horse in the race, certainly the most accomplished at 8 for 29, is the number 5 Flora Fantasy. Maybe the one potential liability with her is her off-the-pace running style. It worked last time out. It worked 2 back. She's riding a 2-race win streak into this field. We'll check out her kind of 4 to 5 wide, like old school Belmont balcony move as she looks to loop the field last time out on March 19th. Claimed off Safi that afternoon, and they don't get cute with her. I like the fact they just bring her back. She's a Florida bred. She's eligible for the tag here, and I just think a good spot for, again, a pretty tough mare by Cowtown Cat.
Yeah, she's been fun to follow recently. I actually liked her a bit more with her stablemate in, as it seemed like Joelle on the outside was going to be part of the pace in here and kind of set it up for a little bit more. And there still could be a little bit of speed. We'll see what Sayonara Baby does getting back onto the dirt. I am in agreement with you, though. I thought Royal Megan a bit more handy. But maybe Jose D'Angelo, not exactly a household name for some. So here's just a kind of an open-ended stat in the last year off the claim, and this obviously will apply to the favorite, but he's got spectacular numbers off the claim, 36% winning and 71% of the time in the money.
Yeah, he's been hard to stop off the claim, and I think the real comforting aspect is this horse had run well recently with Efren Loza, with Safi, and when you consider you've got a good trainer here who's maybe not a household name, guy that grew up in Venezuela, who's done so well, there's no reason to think why she wouldn't show up with her usual A game this afternoon in search of that 9th lifetime win. At some point, though, she's going to have to hook and get around the speeds in this race. I think most importantly, your top pick and the horse that I really fear, and the number 3 Royal Megan, who I think above everything else, not only is she talented, we probably haven't seen her best yet. I think she's still very much on the improve.
She's actually never run a bad race, which has been pretty impressive. Her debut on the turf, her 2, even her open company maiden special weight race back in February. Sticking with State Bred, she got the win 2 starts back, and Corey Gal had been really kind of in very good form around that time as well. So I think that she is a little bit more tactical perhaps than Flora Fantasy in here, and she's still kind of is more on the lightly raced side as well.
Definitely. I don't think we've seen her ceiling thus far. And Corey Gal, by the way, came back won again here last Sunday, 3 straight for her. So no, absolutely no knocks, losing and running well and hitting the board behind Corey Gal, who's just been so good for Gustavo Delgado. Here's the nightcap. We'll wrap things up here on the early show. Race number 11, high-priced 3-year-old maiden claimers in the last. They're on the turf going 1 mile. And Mike Maker, once again, very much a part of the conversation off the bat, setting out the 9 Coco Star and the first-time starting Kittens Clown, who I have first and third in this race. I took, and again, I just preferred, rather than guess with one of the unknowns, and there's many to choose from, that's what makes this race so fun on paper, but I opted for the quote-unquote proven turf form, putting the 9 Coco Star over the 5 Fake Muse, who ran fine last time.
Yeah, I really looked at Fake Muse for a while. I thought that he was one of the more intriguing drop-down runners for sure, and ended up going with a few other, I thought, interesting prices in this spot. I'm wondering what we're going to get from Coco Star is, with that pedigree, he has been a bit lackluster. And though it's on the main track and he's kind of been obviously more of a turf horse, he has been a bit lackluster in the mornings as well. So I'm really curious as to see what we're going to get from him, and the drop just might put him in a perfect spot. I'm taking a shot with the number 2, 2x2. So maybe that's a little bit of hunch play there. But there is a multiple stakes place sibling named Tuco Bay, who won on the turf, a little bit of New Year's Day influence on the top. and this one had just kind of struck me as a horse that could potentially run on the grass. So I'm going to give him a little bit of a shot, and he is one of those unknowns you were mentioning.
Definitely, as he goes out for two guys who have stayed the course, and it's good to see the tide having turned for trainer Ian Wilkes and Chris Landeros. As we take a little time out here on Gulfstream today, we'll have Ronnie a bit later. We've got the big man upstairs, Pete Aiello, coming up next.